So I really like that you opened with I don't really know much about the trans athlete stuff because it is true. And the current studies that point to the amount of time that is actually like within, when you should be able to transition and when those, like when the effects go off, then it is about 1 to 2 years.
All right, Synth, I'm here with Sean, or Actual Justice Warrior on YouTube, and we're just taking questions, taking names, having chats. What did you want to hit us with?
Cool.
Oh, just
So
for clarification, Lauren, remember that tweet you sent
Oh
me
yeah,
from the
you
person
had an
Danny?
absolutely based tweet
Yeah.
about me, I think.
yeah, that was a really base tweet. Yeah. Um
Apparently,
I
Synth
may or
says
may
I'm
not
more of a
have been.
leftist than
I was I was trying to piss off Hassan fans at that point. I think I lost like 20 followers over that shit. It was pretty
Wait, can
good.
you hear her? I can't hear her.
Oh, you can't.
Wait,
Sean
can you
can't
not
hear
hear
you.
me? Hello?
It comes up loading on my screen.
Oh, weird. Yeah, it's
Oh.
totally working. Video online.
Here,
Have
I'm
you
gonna-
tried turning it on and off again?
Danny, DCRC real quick.
If I do
and I'll
that, I
drag you
can't get back in the
Yeah,
room.
I'm trying. Everyone puts old person Pepe's in the chat. That's a boomer take from me too. I don't even know what it's called. Old
Guys,
Pepe
hearing-
emojis.
Can you hear me?
I was hearing everybody fine. I don't understand how it's happening.
Wait, can you hear me now? No. You have me locally muted for some reason?
Locally muted. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know what's going on there.
Me neither. I still
So
can't hear.
you still can't hear. That's really, yeah. No problems here.
I'm coming through to everyone else, right?
I
Yep.
can hear everybody up until this point. People are
Oh.
putting RIP in the chat for me. Thank you.
Sean, can you hear me?
People in my chat. Sean is absolutely autistic in a good way. We love the autism here with
All right,
stats,
hold
but
on one
can't work a
second, Sean.
stream.
We're gonna try
He
drag
gave
out
up
and then
all of
drag
his
back
ability
in.
to use technology so that he could download all of the knowledge of stats
Maybe-
in the known universe.
Oh, I can hear now.
Maybe
You
Sean
you
needs to
fixed it.
reconnect?
Oh,
Oh,
yep,
wait.
it's
Yeah.
working.
There you go.
Okay, throw your video back on if you can.
Okay. Okay. Hello. I'm back.
Hello.
Welcome. Perfect. All right, what did you want to hit us with?
All right. So I heard through the grapevine that there are some interesting things going on with your opinions in trans people in sports now. I wanted to present the case that I think that there's sufficient evidence to say that the Olympic rules, which are 2 years after trans people stopping any sort of their natal hormones and transitioning to like cross-sex hormones, it seems as though these people can compete without any physical advantage. And this is supported by several studies that I can send you.
Okay, so I wanted to quickly, before I let Sean talk about the sports stuff, because I'm sure he's got all of the stats in his brain downloaded from the universe. You probably saw the Jangles debate, and it ended with me saying, listen, even if we had all the technology to make trans male to female be able to compete the exact same as women, I still wouldn't support them going into women's sports. And everyone thought this was a big own. They were like, Lauren has just admitted this has nothing to do with science and it's just bigotry. No, that wasn't actually the reason. The reason is actually because of leftist arguments around how we legitimize transgenderism. So the entire argument from the left is the reason that transgenderism can exist today is because we have split gender and sex. So the idea of what your gender is publicly is disconnected from what your genitals or biology is. So if you're presenting as male, that's basically I take a masculine role in society, right? Or my gender is female, I take a feminine role in society. And that is the only reason why I can take any sort of interest in transgender arguments is by looking into the gender versus sex split. And it's the only way that leftist philosophy around transgenderism makes any sense as well. So the explicit reason for splitting groups in sports is because of biology. So if we split male and female in sports specifically by biology, and then we say that we can put trans men, male to female, in women's sports, then we are suddenly slicing that entire argument about transgenderism of the split between gender and sex.
Okay, so I think there's a significantly different I guess position that a trans woman who is like say like a year or 2 years into HRT is than a pre-transition trans woman. To me, this might actually kill some of the people that really follow me. It's a lot harder to say that like a a trans woman who is like hasn't taken any hormones, hasn't had any surgeries, hasn't done anything like with their biology makeup, that like this person is even close to female. Like that, this is an impossible statement to say. Though, if someone did have like they had a neovagina, which is anatomically structured like almost like a vagina, and they've gotten very, very close to like natal vaginas at this point. If they've been taking hormones for a very long amount of time, and their body has restructured into like the feminine range, there's a significantly different I
I
guess
agree. There's
connotation to
like
calling
a
these people female and allowing them into women's sports rather than allowing like people who haven't transitioned yet and people who still have like the natal hormones that they were born with.
okay, so but that comes into an interesting argument of, do you believe that we can, and this is a huge argument in the transgender sphere, because I've been dabbling in that and having discussions with people certainly a few
Please
months
don't
ago.
come to the Twitter transphere.
Oh,
It's
that's something
absolute cancer.
special.
No,
That
absolute cancer. Please get the fuck out.
yeah, just block them all.
No, I literally no, I have a lot of the trans I have a fuck ton of the trans creators blocked because they're just terrible people. It's okay.
Yeah, they go wild. I'm actually afraid of trans Twitter death squads, not gonna lie. If they ever got any sort of physical power, if they could organize themselves with their 20 different mental illnesses eventually, then that would be very scary. But no, on the question of the the difference between someone who has done no efforts to transition versus someone who has gotten a bunch of hormone treatments, surgeries, this comes down to, do you think that we can medically change someone's sex? Because once again, the transgender argument is that we are talking about someone's gender, but do you think we can medically change someone's sex? Not
So
just
the way
impersonate it.
Sure. So, and I would have to find this article again and search for it because I found this article a long time ago and I don't remember where I misplaced it. But the last update that I read to like doctors determining what sex is that it goes off of I think like 5 different characteristics, and as long as you're like 3 out of 5 on either of those, just purely because as like a natal female, you can be born with male chromosomes and you can be born
Mm-hmm.
with a like an estrogen deficiency and also a testosterone imbalance, so you can look like a man and have a vagina,
Yeah.
like and you will be fully presenting as like a male person because of your like your biological makeup, and you are natally female, right? Like
Yeah.
things like this can happen, so they're more transitioning into a state where sex is like it's a combination of like chromosomes, hormones,
But those are
and
secondary sex characteristics. The primary sex
right.
characteristic and what defines your sex is your gametes. So whether you produce sperm or eggs, and there's no such thing as spags, there's no mix between there. So you can absolutely have people with like Klinefelter or whatever it's called, syndromes where they appear or even have a different like different biology that doesn't seem to match up with what they present as or even what their gametes are. But ultimately your sex is determined by whether you produce, by your sexual role within humanity. Do you produce sperm or do you produce eggs? So we cannot change that through medicine right now. And yes, we can
Well,
talk about changing secondary sex characteristics, but ultimately, yeah, it's those primary sex characteristics of gametes that we can't change, and that is the predictor of whether you are male or female on a sex level.
so this has been the definition for a very long time, and you are correct about that. I Let me find this article that I'm talking about, because it's very new and I was
Mm-hmm.
sent this by like other trans people in the trans community. that like keep on top of this stuff. So let me try to find this and try to send it to you.
Sure. While you're
If I
talking about
can.
or looking for that, I did want to ask Sean, because this was something that I stumbled on, I think, in a conversation with this guy named Jangles. Is claims that after a similar claim to Synth here, that we can get to a point where someone through hormones and surgery can be biologically the same as a female to compete in sports. Have you seen any data around that?
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not like an expert in the trans sports like issue, but what I will say is a lot of these studies, what I tend to notice is that they're comparing muscle mass and strength of like regular people who go through transition and not athletes that go through transition. And it's for me, it's very difficult for me to believe that like Serena Williams played this tennis player. It's a famous case where she wanted to see if she could beat him. He was like the 146th ranked tennis player in the world, but he was on the men's side, and he killed her. Now, if that person transitioned into a woman, it's hard for me to believe that he doesn't carry over, even if you go 2 years, some of those biological advantages that he has over Serena, even though as a man, he's like mid-tier rank. So a lot of those studies don't tend to track actual athletes. They're comparing muscle atrophy of regular people who become trans women to regular biological women. Like athletes are people who build up. It's somebody saying 203rd best men's player, but that's not the point. Like these are people who train as athletes before they transition. That's where the concern is, and I'm in agreement. Like I think for trans men, females who become man, if they can compete in the men's league, that's totally fine. The men's league is about open competition and the best athletes coming to the top. If you're a woman and you could throw 95 miles an hour, Jacob deGrom's injured. The Mets could use you. I'd absolutely take you on the team. I don't have any gender bias in that scenario. But female sports are designed for biological women on the high school and college level. They're designed to give them scholarships. If we're going to be more accepting of trans people, that's fine. I think the better solution would be different leagues for them, because they like making a trans woman who's definitely disadvantaging herself against the men compete against the men that's not a reasonable thing. But like if you want them to have scholarships or whatever, even though they're taking like even though they have some kind of advantage over like other people competing for them, then I guess what you would do in like running or whatever is run them separate, and like they can go to a college that will have a team, because like local high schools might not have enough trans people to field the team, but a college that recruits from across the country might be able to. But for me, women's sports are typically where we design them for biological females so that they don't get hurt. There's a reason that the Women's World Cup soccer team lost to a team of 15-year-olds from Dallas. Like there's differences in biology that I don't think 2 years, especially athlete to athlete, can account for.
So I really like that you opened with I don't really know much about the trans athlete stuff, because it is true, and the current studies that point to the amount of time that is actually like within when you should be able to transition and when those like when the effects go off, then it is about 1 to 2 years, and there are like studies about this. I
I
mean,
think I
yeah,
did
there
read that
are.
study.
And also like the previous studies that have been done on trans athletes specifically, only ever measured trans athletes that were never given cross-sex hormones. In 8 studies from like 2004 to 2015 on all of these, it was all really bad misinformation that was published on trans women about these things. So I I would like to see like what studies you're getting to say like these people don't have significant enough deterioration and like otherwise um, biological change within 2 years of cross-sex hormones, because the studies that I have directly go against that.
Well, to be clear, like I said, that I don't know, I don't cover this kind of stuff on my channel. I was just giving you my perspective and from like what I've seen. If you have information that you want to send me, that's totally fine. But my general position is that we design female sports for biological females for their safety. And I like for me, it would if proven wrong, fine. But for me, it's hard for me to buy that somebody who trains as like a tennis player or some kind of an athlete for years as a man 2 years into hormones is going to lose all of those advantages and become equivalent to a woman.
I
Like,
mean,
they have different bone structure, different muscle structure. There's like all kinds of different things that men on average do better than women. But once you're an athlete, you're training to go to the peak, and the peaks of men are way higher than women. So if you take somebody who is an athlete, like an adult, like or a semi-pro athlete, like I'm going to expect them to overperform. Like they're going to be higher. Like the 203rd player on the men's side beat Serena Williams, the greatest female tennis player of all time, and the game wasn't close. 15-year-olds beat the women's World Cup winners, and it wasn't close. Like these advantages
sure.
aren't to be ignored.
Well, yeah, sure. Advantages between cis men and biological, like, female women, yeah, they shouldn't be ignored. But what also shouldn't be ignored is the actual science that exists that says that within 2 years, cross-sex hormones do significantly change your biology makeup to actually make you competitive with normal cis women.
What do you think about that the trans weightlifter who was lifting something like her average lift
I
was
don't care about individual people because I have no idea what you're referencing, and I can't.
there's like a trans weightlifter. I'm not aware of the name of this person.
Hubbard.
But
And I don't know.
they were
I
Um,
they entered the Olympics at like in their upper 30s.
this is Hubbard.
Typically a women's weightlifter enters around 23 to 26. Were they over 40, Lauren? Because I'm not familiar
40,
with the story.
I believe. Yeah,
I
And
have
they were
no
one of the
idea.
oldest competitors in the Olympics.
And their average weightlifting, because this was a weightlifter for men before that was an average weightlift, their average weightlift was like 40 pounds or some ridiculous weight, or I don't know, metric system, might have been kilos above the female record. That's what this person was averaging.
Where did that person place though?
I don't watch the Olympics. I'm just asking what.
Wait, where did?
Last-
Yeah,
No, it's
they
very
fumbled.
important
They
where the
fumbled
person
all.
placed
No,
in
they fumbled.
relation
Listen,
to
they
other
fumbled
women.
all 3 of their lifts and didn't qualify. So I don't think the question is one of competency, because I think you could have someone who is super incompetent. I think the point is the fact that you could have someone that is well past their prime, was a mediocre competitor within their own biological category, just go in and be an Olympic champion for an entire nation, even though they didn't even have the skill level, fumbling all 3 takes. That's enough of a point that it doesn't really matter if they didn't win, because the question isn't
How many? Okay, so
Wait,
two
did the
questions.
person
Two
finish
questions.
last? Did the person finish
well,
last?
they didn't even
because of, like-
qualify because they didn't get their lifts properly. They fumbled them all.
Oh, so it was like a
Two
DQ.
questions.
It
Yes.
wasn't because they lifted the least amount of weight. It was
Correct.
like a DQ. Okay, so like people get DQ'd. That happens. Like the greatest fighters of all time have been DQ'd in boxing.
I have, yeah. So I want to know how many years this person was on cross-sex hormones before they participated in this, and also if they were training through the hormones, which will effectively negate, like, if you have high testosterone.
I would
the,
assume
like,
if you're
biological
proposing the
differences.
Olympic standard and this person was chosen as a representative in the Olympic, that minimum they were following the Olympic standard.
Okay, can you get me this? I don't know
The
who this
person's name is Hubbard something.
Hubbard is their last name. I can't remember their first name.
Okay, well, I
Laurel
really don't want
Hubbard.
to speak about.
Laurel Hubbard. Yeah, we can do this next gauntlet because I do have to go. I'm 40 minutes over. But it was really lovely to have you on, Synth. I think it makes for lively conversation. And if you're around next Thursday, you can do some reading on Hubbard, and I'd be happy to pick this up where we left off.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll try to find that article that I was referencing, because that is a really important article for me to have, in where science is moving. But thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. And Sean, you are always welcome. It's really nice just sitting here and getting to watch you debate while I just read the chat. No, you're always welcome. All right, so yeah, Synth, gonna say goodbye. Did you have anything you wanted to shout out first before
Oh,
I yeet you out of here?
Sure, I'm Synthes here on Twitter. You can come watch me virulently shitpost and ruin your timeline if you want to. Follow for that. There you go.